Ladies, gentlemen, and legends of all ages, the time has come, and throughout the day as it hits midnight in different regions, people around the world are finally gaining access to Pokémon Legends Z-A. And being, in my opinion, the most unique Pokémon game we've had in a very long time, there's quite a bit you may not expect going into it, unless you've been keeping really up to date on all the pre-release trailers and gameplay, and there's also things that will just help you to understand a little bit earlier than I did. Things that will just make your experience better if you know them right out of the gate. First up then, let's just talk about the battle system specifically for a minute here. Unlike most Pokemon games, this one is real-time combat instead of turn-based. You target enemies and use their attacks manually instead of PP, which limits uses. Instead, all of your attacks have a cooldown. This cooldown is lowered by your speed stat, and so that's definitely worth considering when deciding the Pokemon you want on your team, unless you're like me and you just pick the things that you think look the silliest and then turn them into weapons of mass destruction. That said, it's worth noting that you will be forced more to care about your team's combat ability more than pretty much any other Pokemon game in the past, just because this game is like massively combat focused as far as the activities you'll be taking place in. Obviously, every Pokemon game is heavily combat based, but Legends Z-A is essentially just a progression of battles with relatively little downtime in between them, whether it's the wild zones or the battle zones themselves, which are essentially just a string of battles that you do in a row, and that's how you progress the entire game. So just go into the game, into your plans for your team of 6 Pokemon, with the knowledge and expectation that combat is even more prevalent in this game than previous ones, so you want a full team of relatively combat capable Pokemon around you. Aside from that, attacks that would normally have priority in other Pokemon games, meaning the ones that force you to attack first, instead in this game will teleport your Pokemon directly into the enemy so they can attack immediately. Outside of these types of interactions, any melee attacks will require your Pokemon to actually physically walk up to your opponent before they can do it, which does make it take a bit longer, but on the flip side, a lot of ranged attacks that are smaller or slower projectiles are actually pretty avoidable or dodgeable, though that's more important to know for your own avoidance of enemies and for PvP specifically, which we will be talking about a little bit later on. During wild Pokemon encounters, your opponent will try to attack your trainer rather than your Pokemon. You have the ability to dodge in this game, so you want to use that to avoid their attacks, and you can even recall your active Pokemon into your Pokeball to force them to avoid attacks that would otherwise have hit them, though this only works in wild encounters, not in trainer battles. On the note of wild Pokemon, when the wild Pokemon hit 0 HP in this game, instead of just like instantly dying and going away, they get stars above their head and stick around for a moment. This is an opportunity for a free throw of your finest or least fine Pokeball, depending on how much you want them on. I always feel a little bit Jamaican when I use that short form.
Requisition me a
Pokemon. So this isn't a guaranteed catch, and if they escape, they will disappear for real. So you still want to try and catch Pokemon the normal way. As soon as they get to low health, just start throwing stuff at them, maybe apply some statuses, but this is just a little bit of a slight mercy mechanic in case something goes wrong along the way. As well, it's worth noting that you get experience both for defeating a wild Pokemon and for catching a wild Pokemon, and the defeating XP applies before the last chance stun throw happens, so if you defeat a wild Pokemon through combat, you empty their HP entirely, you get experience. Then if you successfully catch them in their last chance state, you get more experience. So you basically get double the XP when this happens. Another note that's important for combat, but in a more sort of secondary manner, is evolving Pokemon. Like in Legends Arceus, to evolve Pokemon in this game, you do have to go to your menu and interact with them there. It doesn't just happen automatically, even if they hit the actual level required. It's not necessarily a new thing compared to the last Legends game, but I'm assuming that there will be a bunch of people here who have not played that one and are experiencing this one without it, and if so, this is definitely a good thing to be aware of so you don't miss out. As an extension of that, I want to spend a moment talking about the starter Pokemon quickly, and specifically the levels at which they can evolve to give you an idea of what to expect depending on your first big important choice of the game. Chickorita evolves into Bayleaf at level 16 and then into Meganium at level 32. Tepig evolves into Pignite at level 17 and then into Emboar at level 36. And Totodile evolves into Croconaw at level 18 and then into Feraligatr at level 30, so just some specific milestones to be excited for in case you weren't already aware of them. Past that, another general important combat mechanic to take advantage of in this game is, well, advantage, or sneak attacks. With wild Pokemon, you can use this for enhanced catch chances if you surprise them, or if you just choose to in general. If you sneak up properly on a Pokemon, you can get a free hit against them. But what makes this so strong is that it does not trigger the cooldown of the attack that you use. One of the biggest limiters on your strongest attacks in this game will be the cooldown. Cooldowns are so important, and so getting to start a combat by negating the cooldown of one move of your choice entirely, simply by approaching that combat in a smart way, is a massive advantage that you would just be giving up if you ignore that mechanic otherwise. So it's definitely something worth getting used to sooner rather than later. As for trainer battles specifically, the main place you will experience those is in the Z-A Royale, which is the nightly event in the city where you can enter battle zones full of trainers looking for a fight. And this is how you progress the actual story of the game. This is relatively straightforward on the surface. You beat trainers within the zone, which accumulates points. Once you get enough points, you get a challenger's ticket. A challenger's ticket lets you fight the actual rank up battle, which lets you go up in the rankings from Z to A, with each of these sort of rank up battles being sort of like this game's equivalent of gym leaders, though they aren't quite the same thing. As well, some extra things to be aware of with this system are that there will be medals that you can pick up off of the floor, just littered around the place, and these medals will convert to gold at the end of the night, with the actual conversion rate depending on how many battles that you win through the course of the night as well. On top of this, you can find these bonus cards which offer bonus rewards for completing slightly more specific objectives like the ones that you see on your screen here. And with that combined with just doing the actual battles as much as possible, you should get a lot of value out of your nighttime excursions, which is a slightly weird way of phrasing that makes it sound a bit worse than it is. Aside from that, we should also talk about the PvP, or player versus player game mode in this game, called Z-A Battle Club. The format of this game mode is 4-player free-for-all with the real-time combat system of the game. You gain 1 point for every last hit that you get, meaning the player who scored the killing blow specifically when a Pokemon dies is the one that gets the point. After a 3-minute timer of this gameplay loop, the player that has the most points will win, and this is a ranked competitive game mode in a similar way to the story progression as well. The ranks will go up from Z at the bottom up to A at the top. Something that we do have to touch on though that is very much a sore spot for the community is the end of season rewards for this activity. We don't know the exact rank required, so we don't know how exclusive this will end up being, but most of the complaints are that this requires a Nintendo Online membership just to take part in to begin with, but the reward for Season 1 is the Mega Stone for Greninja, the reward for Season 2 is the Mega Stone for Delphox, and the reward for Season 3 is the Mega Stone for Chestnut. And even if you aren't upset by the fact that it requires an online membership, which requires paying for it, and if you aren't upset the fact that it requires a skill requirement too, you're probably still upset that those won't be in the game at the actual release, and in some cases quite a while post-launch. Regardless, it's all important information to know about the game and those specific megas. Outside of that, one of the more major mechanics of the game is the Pokedex and the Pokemon research mechanic. You will be asked to level up your Pokedex by completing specific objectives. Some of the objectives through the system are things like catching specific types of Pokemon, but the important part of this is the rewards from it, because this importantly gives you a whole bunch of TMs along the research level up path, which can be quite useful in their own right. And of course, the final reward at the end of it all is the Shiny Charm for increased shiny Pokemon appearance rate, which is a massive deal if you do want to get into shiny Pokemon hunting in this game. Past that, just a couple of smaller tips that can also have a larger impact on your gameplay when looking at your map. Any building that shows up as darker means that it is enterable or explorable in some fashion. The actual color of things on the map does shift, but it's always the ones that are in a darker shade. If you didn't know this, you would miss a bunch of buildings. This doesn't necessarily mean that you need to enter every single one that you come across, but it's nice to know which ones they are and nice to know when they exist, so you have the choice to make for yourself. Another neat one to be aware of, outside of Poke Centers, there will be a ball collector NPC. His entire job is picking up any Pokeballs that you throw that don't actually connect with a Pokemon, meaning if your aim is bad, you aren't straight up throwing balls in the trash, you're just putting them aside to pick up again later. This does not apply to Pokeballs that you throw, hit Pokemon with, and then they manage to escape. It doesn't work for those, it's only the ones that you straight up miss, but this is still definitely useful. Finally then, this isn't really one that will make you stronger or more efficient for the most part, but you can eat at cafes around the city with your follower Pokemon. This will heal them up and also it will increase your friendship with them, and I just think that it's really adorable and everyone should just do it as much as they possibly can, really. That just about does it for today then, everyone. A bunch of things that I think would help to know as you begin your journey in Pokémon Legends Z-A. Hopefully either help you acclimate to the difference in gameplay or progression a little bit easier, or just give you some helpful knowledge about specific new things. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and if you have your own tips for yourself after you've started playing the game, feel free to leave them for other players in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.